Yo, so I just want to point out this is therapy for us all. Like week in, week out. We look forward to it. Listen,
Fellas,
it's
it's
just
gonna be one of them nights.
it's going to be, I'm telling you. No, what's going on? What's going on, man? Welcome to another Tuesday night prototype dad. What's going on? So tonight's an interesting conversation, man. We're gonna talk about God and man and how it relates to us in the community and how we feel about everything, man. There's been some, I got some questions on deck for some things that's been on my heart um, about the way men is serving God and what God we're choosing, is best for us. Um, hey Mo, I got a little gift for you, bro.
Okay.
I'm gonna lay this little sound for you.
I mean, they're gonna be.
Don't be like Mo. Hey, look, we might need to use that button at some point today.
Period. I want to bring on some guests, man. We won't get everybody here. Some people will be dropping in soon, but for the people that are here, we got Mr. Douglas Carner. What's going on?
Hey, good evening. Good evening, young man.
Don't be.
I mean, they're gonna.
There you go. Had to find a round of applause. I got too many buttons over here. What's going on, man?
Not a lot, man. Just trying to keep it safe and
Do what you do, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to introduce another guy, the Imperfect Gentleman, man. He been on some other podcasts, some other live streams with me, man. It's a good dude, and I know he got a good heart. So, what's going on, man?
Oh man, you got that button right. I seen just now, so you're flowing good now. Blessings and positive energy and good vibrations to your wonderful platform, Clean. Thank you for having me, bro.
Man, appreciate you dropping by, man. You had some good inspiration and some good topics, man. And I can tell by your vibe that you'd be perfect for this episode and the conversation we're going to dig into. Even in your intro, right? You know what I'm saying? Raise a lot of about how you know what I mean, say greetings to people, right? You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that you just kind of like, why is he saying it like that? Where's he getting that from? It's one of those things that it's not it's common,
Right.
but it's not as common. It still raises flesh for people who don't know.
Absolutely.
What's going on, Hit?
What up, bro? What's up, fellas?
I'm 2 for 2 on the
King.
button. I got something for you too, bro. You want to hear it?
For me?
Yeah.
What is it? I mean, they're gonna be more confident. They're gonna get more women. What?
Got your sound bite.
That's it. Play it again. I mean, they're gonna be more confident. They're gonna get more women.
Well, that's his motivational speech and mantra.
Period. So yeah, let's hop right into it, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and guide this thing, and you got some feedback coming through from somebody. I don't know who, but first question, man. And Mr. Doug, since you're the guest, and I kind of reached out to you first on this. I'm gonna say you go first, and then after you go, pick somebody to go, right? So, what does God mean to you?
Well, God to me is it's different from what I was raised to believe. I was raised to believe of a person in the sky sitting on a throne, and he's watching everything that I do. As I grew older, I began to question, because we should question everything that is handed to us, because we were handed something from someone who didn't have our best interests at heart. So I must question that now. And and truth is what was, what is, and what will be. So as I grew older and I start to look at what was given to me from my mom, from my grandfather, who was a AME minister, it just didn't set right with me. So as I began to grow in my maturity and in my understanding, I began to understand that energy is the source of everything, and energy is in everything. So I don't think of God as an entity, but I think of God as energy. I think of energy as what gives us life, and energy is in everything. So I began to understand that when they say God is in everything and in all things, I began to understand that that energy is what brings everything into its form or its being or existence. So I break it down into a scientific understanding, positive, negative, um, neutrons, electrons, and protons is what creates energy. So if energy is in all things, I began to think that God being energy, it is a mixture of protons, neutrons, and electrons, which causes us to exist and causes and gives life. So I look at it from that perspective, and I also look at it from God being male, um, and there is no possible thing for a man to make man and woman. So there's the duality. Now I know we were told with the Bible of God being a person or an entity that made man out of clay and then took the bone from the rib and made woman. Um, to me, that just, I mean, that's a story. If you want to believe that, you believe that. But for me, that just it just doesn't it doesn't balance out for me. So um, I'm still searching. I still am open to other thoughts and other theories and other ways to look at it. But for me, that is how it basically balances out for me. So, I mean, I give everybody their chance to um, believe or to understand the presence of a creator or God. But for me, and I don't want to um, step on anyone's toes as to how they understand it. But for me, that's just how it works.
All right, go ahead and call on your next victim.
Okay, Mo Better.
So, man, no victim here, man. I think for me, man, this is a little touchy in that, like, I have very strong feelings on it, but it's something that I generally don't speak out loud, right? So just kind of a little background, man. I come from a very religious family. And kind of like Mr. Connor was speaking of, man, like I just had questions growing up, man. So I was in the church every day, and I remember I told folks the only reason I really got into football is because I heard that the games were on Sunday, and that meant I didn't have to go to church.
Wow.
So and hence it took me out of the hood and et cetera, et cetera. But for me, man, as far as what it means to me, likewise, man, it's changed a lot. In that, for me, one of the things that initially was an issue for me is that I remember I would go to the church and it was white Jesus. And I was like, it just didn't sit well with me. As a kid, it didn't sit well with me. And I said, how can this be so? So with that being said, man, from, like 5 years old, I was kind of a bright child. So because I like to read stuff or whatever. So what ended up happening was, being in my family was so religious, they were like, oh, well, he's going to be a minister one day or whatever. So with that being said, the books that were given to me were religious books. So I was really well versed in that type of stuff. But what ended up happening was it gave me a lot of questions that people didn't have answers to. And then from there, what ended up happening is I started searching a whole bunch of different religions, and I started seeing a lot of synergies in most of them, right? And what that led me to believe was, I'm not here to say yay or nay, but what I will say is I know I came from a higher power. I know I'm destined to do righteous things in this world, and I try to treat everybody with respect, regardless of what that, of who they are and where they come from. And for me, man, I travel a lot around the world, and I see the difference in the duality in a lot of those things. So for me, what it is, it's a guiding star for me, what God is, and it kind of keeps me on the road because I have the duality to go either way. But what happens is that's kind of my guiding light, and it kind of keeps me on the road and on the righteous path. So that's where I am now. It's a journey, so we'll see.
Pick somebody.
So with that being said, man, I'm actually curious, like y'all was saying with the intro, man, I'm actually curious to hear what the Imperfect Gentleman has to say about the topic.
Well, this is awesome, man. This is not something I really get a chance to talk about because we don't really get a chance to talk about this in public. You know what I mean? They've taken God out of the schools. They've taken God pretty much out of anything. So it's like just to be able to mention the name, right, and just say it out loud is kind of refreshing in this moment. So you asked me earlier why I enter a room and how I enter a conversation is always the same way, and it's positive energy and good vibrations from me to you, because I've learned that, like the gentleman said earlier, it's energy. God is energy. He's in everything. Any book you read, I don't care how they chop it up. They say God is in everything. I'm reading a book right now called The Science of Getting Rich. And in that book, it says there's a permeating substance. It's I'm misquoting it right now, but it's a phrase that keep repeating in the book, and it refers to the energy that's in everything. So my personal thing is, when me and the gentleman come together, I only want positive energy between us. I don't want negative energy between us. So I'm setting the tone before we even say anything. I don't want to just say hello, because that's hollow. There's no substance in that. When me and the person that I'm intentional about having a conversation with, I'm intentional about setting the atmosphere, and that is with greetings of positive energy. So to me, what God means is the creator of all. Like, I was raised in the Pentecostal church. When you call a pew baby, amen. You know what I mean? I can play out a church service from the opening testimony service down to the ending benediction, and I can play out everybody's position because I've been in church that long my entire life. But if you ask me what kind of spirituality do I have, I didn't know God personally until a few years ago. So this conversation to me is really deep, because it's like I'm just now understanding what God means to me, and that what He is to me is my Father. I can truly say that God is my creator. I don't care what you call Him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a bunch of guys that I coach, and they always ask me when we get down to the spirituality side. It's like, oh, what do you believe? I believe in that you're supposed to believe and call on the God that you serve. I don't tell you what God to serve or what to call Him, but I do advise you to pray to a higher power. That is my advice, because, like you said, we didn't come from ourselves, and no other man just created us. Because that man was created, the other man was created, and it's all going back to some source. So that being said, to me, God means everything. God is in everything. God is in each and every one of us. He is the reason why we're here right now. He is the reason we're having this conversation, and He is the reason for the season. So next, right now, I'm gonna go to my man, Hitman.
Yo. Kind of it was a lot, man. There's a lot of really good points, man. I'm sitting there listening, man. I was really enjoying it. Just soaking it all in. So I mean, a lot of times we can't have this conversation, man, in America. Because like religious is so much, like politics and religion is so much tied to it. We talk about like being handed down. So like sometimes when you're talking to somebody about, you know what I mean, your views on religion, a lot of times you're insulting their grandmother, or you insulting their pastor, or you insulting somebody, whoever taught whatever they learned religion from. Cause it's like, yo, my grandma wasn't wrong. She was right. There's no way, you know what I'm saying? So it's really hard to have this conversation, you know what I mean, in a public forum. So like, you know, I applaud the brothers you know what I mean, sitting here and having this conversation. But for me, like I mean, I grew up in and out of the church for a long time, and I gave up on Christianity because I thought it's just like it's a lot of hypocrites and you know what I mean. It was just a lot of it, man. Like throughout it. But I was fortunate to find a really really good church, Afrocentric church that focused on teaching more than like hooting and hollering. You know what I mean? So they really like the guys are scholar and they really break it down. And when it broke down, like it really freed me. You know what I'm saying? And I say because like if you like Christianity was developed, like the one in America was developed to keep you captive. You know what I'm saying? Both mentally and you know what I'm saying physically. But now it's more physical than anything because it stops you from being a free thinker. Like you be like, wow, like yo, you know what I'm saying? Even though it makes sense, but it goes against what they taught you, so you don't do it. See what I'm saying? So it really freed me, like to be like a free thinker, to like to go and seek and understand and find things. And so you know what I mean? That's my viewpoint now. God is totally different than it was before that church. You know, now I believe with God, like the fella said, God is absolute. Like God can be both mother and father, you know what I mean? God can be, you know what I mean, whatever you need it. For me, like God is the pilot, right? I'm just riding the ride. You know what I mean? Like God is really because everything is preordained. Like the brother said, this conversation is not, you know what I mean, an accident. Like nothing that happens is not an accident. Like it just don't happen. Like it ain't by chance. Like that don't exist. Like everything is preordained. Every conversation is sacred. You know what I mean? And if we approach it like that, we would get more of the lessons that we supposed to know because God's like feeding you on his journey. You know what I'm saying? Like you wondering where things is gonna come from, or like God's like, yo, you need to learn this because this is what I'm getting you ready to do this. You know what I mean? And so like you might have a conversation with somebody randomly, and you know what I mean? You be like, damn, like I didn't even think of that. And then like 2 weeks later, you need to use the information you found. You know what I mean? So like I believe like we were taught like the brother said, even that story about the creation. So Moses actually wrote, you know what I'm saying, the first testaments, right? Moses was like, you know, if you know the story, he went to Egypt, you know what I'm saying? And he learned in Egypt. That's where he was taught at. That story is actually about like an Egyptian god. I was trying to think of the name. I was gonna look it up, but it really comes from an Egyptian god, and it's a story of Egypt. Like it happened in Egypt. So a lot of the stuff that we were taught, like to believe, really wasn't for us. A lot of that stuff was written for specific things, you know what I mean, to make a specific point. But it wasn't for us to like to take it literal. You know what I'm saying? So like what I believe, like I said, with God is again, like, you know what I mean? It's freedom. Like it's the ability to, you know what I'm saying, to control this journey because it ain't like mystical. You know what I mean? Like a lot of stuff that happens to us is because we do it or we like it or we choose it. It ain't because something like there's like a devil out there that's making us do it. Yo, you hit her because you like her. You know what I'm saying? You like big booties. Just be real with it. You know what I'm saying? That's why you keep going back over there. You know what I'm saying? It ain't the devil making you do it. That's what you want to do. So, like, you know what I'm saying? So I think we make it more mystical than it is. I think, like, with God, it's simplistic. You know what I'm saying? God is in the sun. God is in the earth. It's about balance. You know what I mean? And just being a good person overall, and then taking your journey the way you're supposed to. And that's it.
What's up? I want to introduce my big bro. Been there a while, man. What's up, Default? You muted? You muted? You might be muted. There you go.
I think my background noise might be bad. If it's so, let me know. I had another meeting at a cigar bar, man. And we just getting done, so I'm hopping on. What's up, brothers?
What's
Some
going
great
on?
conversation, man. Just briefly, I am a church boy. Matter of fact, I am the director at one of the largest church, no, the largest church in Western Pennsylvania, Mount Ararat. Um, I've been one of those guys. I'm a philosophy and sociology major. I mean, that's what I got my degree in. So I always question a lot of things that were told to me. I am definitely a God person, not in the sense of the institution of Christianity. I believe in the Holy Scripture. However, when you peel back the layers and you tap into the Council of Nicaea. So us being brothers, what I've come to realize in short is that everything that's been given to us somehow has been hijacked. Our music, everything. So even whether you call it religion, spirituality, um, the powers to be, you call it Rome, they even hijacked that. So we look at Christian. I don't even like to call myself a Christian because that terminology, as it relates to Christianity, was a term given to us, not ascribed by God. That's who the Romans labeled them. Because back then, if you were into Christ and everything like that, even if you read the scripture for folklore or literally, if you read who Christ was, you couldn't tell me that he was a man of color based on woolly hair, so on and so forth. So the hijacking of Christianity again to control using religion, but does that mean that is not true? Uh, I'm still wrestling with a lot of that. I have a personal relationship. If your spirituality is based off of just what you read and not what you experience, then you're always going to be bounced from left to right. So based on God in my life and my personal relationship, that's who I roll with. Christ is a big part of that. I don't view Christ as the Michelangelo, long hair, blue eyed person that the Western civilization has painted him to be. I have agnostic friends, I have Muslim friends, I have atheist friends, and we always wrestle with these types of conversations. But I am truly a God person, not in the sense of as I am smoking a cigar and got a glass of yak right with me. I enjoy life. There's freedom in God. Not that I can do anything that I want to do because he checks me on that stuff as well. But I'm a God dude. I still go to church. I question a lot of things. I search. Every morning when I wake up, my first thing is, Pops, thanks for waking me up again. What we doing today? That's how I talk to him. What we doing today? What you got for me today? You know what I mean? So, in brief, I mean, this is such a big topic and I get into a lot of conversations, especially being kind of popular in Pittsburgh as it relates to the church and stuff like that. And we wrestle with this stuff, and until we do, I think some people have talked about this, the freedom in God, the energy, however you label him. And what I'm realizing, you'll never figure him out totally. We see through a glass darkly. You know what I mean? So, my experience with God has been a journey and I'm still on that journey and I'm still learning stuff that I learned that I thought I knew. He always comes and flip it up and he teaches me something else and I have to throw away, an ideology that I had before. And a lot of times I had to go back and apologize to certain people that I may have had conversation with about religion, Christianity, spirituality. So, I'll stop there, man. But this is great conversation, though.
What's up, Smooth? Welcome to the panel, my guy.
What's happening? What's happening?
What does God mean to you, my guy?
Now I'm listening to the fellas, man. Me personally, I say the last 2 years, man, I've been battling with what God is and who God is. And I'm slowly coming to my personal conclusion. I'm sorry, I've been drinking a little bit. That I think we are our own individual gods. But I believe there's a higher power. But I still believe that we are gods. I feel like everything in our life, we control that. If we think positive thoughts, man, positive results going to happen. We think negative, it's going to happen. I just feel like we in control. Now, being from Mississippi, growing up in the church, man, you see life different. When I left Mississippi and moved to Virginia, then moved to Atlanta, man, I started seeing different things, man. I was like, hey, everybody don't think the same like we do in the country. One thing I was always raised with or was taught that is without without work, prayer. Well, no, without prayer, faith. How does it go?
Faith without works is dead.
Right. That's the saying. So you praying to God for something, but you still got to put work in to make it happen. So does that mean that we have God-like tendencies, things we're praying for that we're actually doing ourselves? But when I tell somebody I ask somebody who's so religious about that, they always, got something negative to say. And I'm trying to figure. I've never figured that part out, man. Never. Hit Me said something about, to tell our grandmother or our mother that, they was wrong. It's hard. Hit Me right. It's hard. But play, it ain't impossible. My mother was wrong. My father was wrong. Because things that now I'm seeing, taking the things that my father taught me and leaving Mississippi and moving to the city and moving around and traveling the world, going to countries that my father never imagined going to. And everything you're telling me wasn't the truth. You're only telling me what your father or your grandfather told you. And in return, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Make sure that I can do things and experience things you haven't experienced. But I'm seeing things that's contradiction what you're telling me. And I'm gonna leave that right there, man.
So for me, I would consider myself a believer, Christian, or I'll say Christian for a quick understanding of my viewpoints, right? So I can say that just to just to say, like, if I'm in the world and people are like, oh, what do you believe? I'll say I'm a Christian, just so I don't got to go in detail. We could say like believer or whatever, but I believe the Bible to be true, and God and and Christ being Jesus's son, and that, so on and so forth. The thing about me, about God for me is it's just like it works for me. You know what I mean? So and Default said something very, it's kind of like that personal relationship. It's not just the words on the page, right? Although that we use that as the word and the reference, but it's a lot of the personal relationship of, I don't have to be perfect in life to, you know what I'm saying, to get the benefits of being a believer. And if my life is one thing, it definitely says that I'm far from perfect, but um I definitely can say I'm a blessed individual. So I can't even take credit for any of any of that. So it's just one of those things. Um I mean, the next question is it important to believe in God? Uh let's start out with the Imperfect Gentleman.
Oh man, is it important to believe in God? When you start talking about belief, instantaneously, as Brother Default, when you talk about that, your experience, man, like, and anybody know me, I'm a water barrel when I get to thinking about how God has been to me. Like, the experiences that I know that there was no way I'm supposed to be here. I couldn't did that. Like, the gun was pointing to my face. The person that had smoke was dead serious about what he wanted to do. There was bullets in that gun. He pulled that thing and I'm still here. So is it important to believe in God? In my book, if you don't, you are wilding. Yo, what else are you holding on to? What else are you going to do when man fall, when man's hands fail you? Because we going to fail you. Everybody that got this skin, this flesh, and this bone is going to fail you at some point. So is it important to believe in God? You better believe it. There is no other thought process for me, because when I think, like the old people used to say, and I'm going back to church with it, when I think of the goodness about where I'm sitting right now and where I could have been sitting at, not just in the grave, but I could have been sitting behind bars 10 times over right now, and I'm sitting here on this microphone not because of my goodness, and I'm not stupid. Yeah, yo, Pastor Smooth, you're right. We have control over all of it. But guess who sees the beginning, the middle, and the end? Is it important? beyond important, because if you don't, you're gonna have there's nothing for you to hold on to. And that's just my own personal belief. Oh, I
Mr.
gotta pick
Carter, what
again?
you got?
Oh, okay.
Who is me?
Yeah, I want you to take a spin on it.
Well, I think that we were separated from our language, our knowledge of self, and reinvented in a system that makes us into what we are and causes us to believe the things that we believe. I think there's more gifts for us knowing our history versus knowing these words, because these words are not our words. I was checking out some young boys on this video, and they were talking about how the words that we use, because the English language is one of the youngest languages out of all the languages spoken, and how it is a mixture of a variety of different languages to create what it is that we use now as our first language, which is really a foreign language to us. Like hello, like I awake, or I wake up, um, good morning. These things, that these words that we speak has a root in most of the roots are rooted in something negative, but we don't understand it because we've been cut off from our origins, or our knowledge of what we are, where we come from. So when you use this language, and we don't have any other way of communicating, but we're communicating um, unknowingly in a negative way, but we don't view it as such because we are cut off. So um, I think that we're limited as far as um, knowing how to be positive, because you can think you're being positive, but if you're using something that you have limited knowledge of, you could be basically speaking something negative. I was also researching this professor who was saying he took two petri dishes and he put water in both the petri dishes, and he wrote positive words under one and he wrote negative words under the other. And the petri dish with the positive words, when it formed its crystals, they were pretty beautiful shaped crystals. But the water that had the negative words had distorted crystals. And he was just speaking of the power of our thoughts, our energy, and the words that we use. I thought that was quite interesting. I haven't conducted this experiment of my own, but I think that um, I definitely want to look deeper into that, because it's amazing that we are all here and we're attempting to be positive, but at the same sense, there's still a lot of negativity around us. So why is it that we can go to church and say what we think is positive things and think positive things, or we think it's positive, but we're still coming up with negative outcomes? So like I said, we must question everything, and we have to rethink everything, and we may even have to retool everything. And that's not a fear to me. I'm not fearful of that. I don't think that um, we should fear letting go of things that we hold near and dear to us, simply because we don't know what our past is. And it's very important for us to know our history versus knowing uh, words in a book.
How,
And
how does how does our history affect what God is doing for us today. Like, you know what I mean? Like something I alluded to, and also Default alluded to, is our relationship and how we benefit today. How's my history playing any of that?
Okay, do you know that the word the Son of God, you think it's the Son of God because of Jesus, but it could be the sun that's in the sky. You don't know because you've been cut off. So you're just going to take what was given to you, and you'll use it as what you consider truth. But truth is what was, what is, and what will be. And if it doesn't fit all three, it's not true. Okay, it could be a reality, but it doesn't make it true. So we must know our history. It's like the symbol Sankofa. The bird looks back to go forward. If we don't know where we come from, we can continue to go in circles and not get where we need to go. So I think it's very, very important for us to know things that were here, because nothing is new under the SUN. Nothing is new. So everything that we're doing has been done before, repeated. And we don't know if it's being repeated in a positive way or a negative way. So we should know our past. A lot of people don't know in the book, the Bible, don't know where some of these places are that they're speaking of. The Garden of Eden. Some people say it's at the base of the mountain of I think it's Kilimanjaro. But we don't know because the names have been changed and we've been stripped from our history. So I think it's very important for us to connect with that so that we can know where we come from, where we're going, so that we can get a grip and understand the words and the language that we're using so that we can make it work for us.
What's up, Mo? What are you thinking right now?
You already know. So a couple things. So a couple things that Mr. Connor mentioned that really resonated with me. Firstly, the first, kind of story that I'll give, man, I always remembered, you're talking about language. And I remember, and sometimes I always think about this, and it's kind of the whole don't be like Mo thing, man. Sometimes I'll use knowledge not necessarily for good. It's more of a hustle. And I remember I had a teacher, and it was an SAT prep class, and he was teaching us Latin. And he went very deep into Latin, and I learned it. And he tricked me in that he was like, this is the cheat code. It wasn't the cheat code, it's just what really is. It's the root of our language. And then there's prefixes and suffixes that go off of those roots. But he tricked me into learning that based off, because he told me it was like the cheat code or a hustle. So you're absolutely right. And as I was learning a lot of the roots, what we think, what we're saying, that's not what we're saying. So that was kind of an awakening for me. So that's at like 16, 17 years old. So I kind of started looking at things a little bit differently from that. And then we had an episode last season where I was actually in Egypt. And I remember as I was walking in these pyramids, we talk about knowing thyself and knowing where we come from, right? So I'm kind of well read in a lot of those types of things. And as I'm kind of going through these pyramids and I'm looking and I'm seeing faces that look like me, and then there's pharaohs and such, right? But then when I looked at the people that were actually there currently, they don't look like that. And as I was having discussion with, and I get this is kind of going a little away from the question, but I'll land my plane. But essentially in one of the conversations that I ended up having with one of my drivers was, so what they say is they say they don't use the word black because they say it's kind of demonic or whatever. They don't call us black for that reason. They were like, no, that's not polite. They call us chocolate or caramel, whatever, right? True story, right? So So as we were having this discussion, right? And it's a Muslim country, and I've studied that as well. So we were actually able to have a conversation. It wasn't a mine is better than yours. Just as brothers, and this is how we had this conversation. We were like, as brothers, we can agree to disagree, or we can actually see that there's some synergies within the two ideologies. And one of the things that kind of came up was, as long as we're treating everybody right, shouldn't we kind of agree on that? And we're like, yeah, we're right. And one of the things that came up was, well, and I felt comfortable enough saying this, and my fiance was in the car, and I said, I'm gonna just be honest with you. As I was looking, kind of at these, I was looking at all these images on the pyramids on the walls. They look like me. Why is it that the dominant society right now is you? And he said, whoa. And I said, exactly. And I said, no, this is curiosity. This isn't blame. And he's like, oh, well, and keep in mind where Egypt is. That's an African country. And he's like, oh, we're an Arab country. And I said, see, that's pride and that's ego. I was like, that's not the discussion we're having here. And I said, I think more importantly is you're talking about the greatest pharaohs, and even there was even a woman king and pharaoh. And as they were talking about it, I said, just based off y'all logic, and as the guy, he was one of our guides, and I said, just based off your logic, these people were chocolate. And you were saying that they were from the north, and then from their head garbs, if they were red, they were from this part, and if they were yellow, they were from this part. And if they had both, that means they united, and that's why they were one of the greatest pharaohs to ever live. And I said they were chocolate. So why is it that there's a separation there, and why is it that you guys are what's kind of leading right now? And that's kind of where we had that discussion and where we left it, because I saw he was starting to get a little upset. But I said, I think really what happened is we were tricked out of our land. And that's kind of what's going on now. If you don't know your history, you can be tricked out of your inheritance. And essentially, that's kind of what's going on with Kevin Hart right now. He said something to that effect, and they're ready to cancel him. But, like Mr. Connor said, if it was true back then, it was true then, and going to be true in the future. Isn't that what makes it? That's what makes it the truth. And that's where I was like, and so you don't want to. So, I mean, we were actually having a really good discussion until it started to, hurt his ego, or like Hidley said, I was starting to step on kind of what his grandmother taught him. But I was actually using his logic. And so I just, from that perspective, man, I kind of go through all this with a critical eye. And at the end of the day, man, I use God or, whatever the higher being is my navigational system. Like I said, man, it's not necessarily everything, but it's always my North Star, and it keeps me grounded. It keeps me on the road. So that's where I was thinking as everyone was speaking, just kind of some real life application to the stories that you guys brought up.
What's up, Wayne? I see them wheels turning. What's going on there?
Hey man, that's again, it's such a broad. There's not one answer that's going to sum up any of this, right? So, to your question, I believe God is a matter of life and death for me. Let me get that out the way for me. As it relates to when we talk about Egypt, and so one of my workers, she's from Kenya. So a lot of times we look at the continent as a country. Big mistake. And so I'm always joking with her. So I'm back and forth to London a lot. So I have a lot of Nigerian friends. I made the mistake, said, man, y'all Nigerians, this is the nicest girl you would ever want to meet. And when I called her a Nigerian, man, if she had a knife or a gun, she would have shot me. So one of the biggest mistake as African Americans we think that the continent is just, we all speak the same. It's tribal. It's spiritual. They're not all the same. Ethiopia. And I mean, some of that stuff is worn. So even when we talk about Egypt, we were rolling that. And so when we talk about 400 years that the, colonial white man has kept us enslaved, we don't wrestle with the fact that when we were in power, that we enslaved our own and people for over 600 years. but we won't wrestle with that. So we got to wrestle with dynasties. You know how Rome took over and how the Greek came in, and that, now they was I think the brother was talking about the women ain't nobody more beautiful than black women, so they laying up with them. They're creating all hues of skin. I mean skin colors and intonations and worshiping all different types of gods and things of that nature. So it's such a broad topic. So even when you talk about language, that's just one aspect. And I do teach that the English language is the most general. So when you say prayer, we think of it one way. But if you look at it in the Greek or in the Hebrew, it can mean, depending on the content, it could mean something totally different than what our understanding might be. So it's such a lifelong quest of understanding and learning. And the thing that keeps me centered, because I'm always learning, because I believe so much in God. When I wrestle with this, I'm like, God, this don't make sense. What's up with that? In some way, maybe not immediately, but eventually, for me, explanations through these conversations and stuff like that uh, bring some light on certain aspects of some of the stuff that we're wrestling with. And one of the things that, because man, I would have walked away from the church long time ago. The hypocrisy, just the fakeness, and the genie in the bottle formulas and stuff. I'm like, man, this hocus pocus stuff ain't real. You know what I mean? And the thing, like, my dad's been dead since I was 18. And brothers, I think about a year ago, I had this unquenchable desire. I want to talk to my dad. I don't want to talk to nobody else. I want to talk to my dad. So one of my artists, she's into the whole esoteric stuff, tarot cards and stuff. She said, she was going to take me to her medium to conjure up my dad so I could talk to him, right? And I was about it. And that Thursday before, this is during pandemic, one of the reverends called me and said, Brother Dwayne, I ain't talked to her in 2 years. And anytime I have a dream that's vivid, I tell her, she kind of interprets or gives me some light as to what it could mean. And she said, I had a dream about your father, and he told me to tell you to finish what you started. Someone said earlier, you can't tell me that's some coincidence. So now it's like, God, okay, God, I kind of got out there. Reel me back in. So it's these things like that hold me fast, not to the institution of Christianity or Baptist, Pentecostal. No, it holds me fast to who I believe Christ was. And then if you really study who Christ was, he was the one that went hard at the church. He went hard at the institution of the church. All
Facts.
his boys was thugs. He had love for the hood, yo.
That's a
So I
whole
will
fact.
I will not throw him away no matter what. However, I will gather all the information from all the different schools of thoughts because there's truth in them all. Gandhi said, I would be a Christian if it wasn't for Christians. You know what I mean? So for me, to the question, is God important? For me, it's a matter of life and death. I tell God, like when He got me on assignments or I got major things, I'm a musician, guys, big crowds and writing operas and all this stuff. I say, God, if you don't stand up in me, and I do believe, as the brother was saying, that because we're made in His image, that means there's God in us. But if Father, if you don't direct me, I guarantee you, I'm gonna find a way to f it up. So that's how. But I love, especially when you're dealing with the motherland, Africa, and there's no doubt that even in the Bible, Nimrod, Moses, you can't tell me them was the brothers, man. Western culture, of course, they take everything that we've created, they manipulate, they use it to their own benefits. It's almost like, okay, we can't beat these cats, so we're gonna have to take it and make it our own, and then ration it back out. That's how they keep us in control. But I can go on and on about that, man. But yeah, that's my thought on the importance of God for me.
Go, bro. You hyped up. Go ahead. Say
Yo,
your
listen,
piece.
because yo, you know what's so crazy? Because yo, D, I'm just now doing my research on the real Jesus, and like, yo, this whitewash of Jesus, the way they preach him in these churches, that it wasn't him. Because if they was to really preach the real Jesus behind these churches, a lot of these churches be shut down. Yo, Jesus tore up shop. He was a radical, like a radical. And you couldn't and you can't sit here and tell me that he got the characteristics of a Caucasian brother. I'm just gonna keep it a stat. The dude was a wild out agent, real rap. He was a wild out agent, and like I look at now that I understand more about what the actual the behavior of Jesus was. I am now no longer questioning my own self in certain ways. There's so many things where I'm like, yo, am I wrong for doing this? Everybody around me was saying I was wrong for doing it, but it was what got me through things. And then coming to find out, it's like, no, y'all was trying to tone me down because I'm not going to be told that I can't do something that I feel in my heart to do. And a lot of times, if you pay attention in the circles of your life, the people who always want to do something that they want to do, everyone around them has something to say about it, right? They always got something to say about what you feel like you want to do. But when I really look at the man that Jesus was and how he carried himself, he went before the Father, and then that was it. He didn't ask nobody else for permission. He wasn't walking around here saying, oh, should I do this? Or is it okay if I did this? Nah, Jesus wasn't asking permission. If anything, he was asking for forgiveness once he did whatever he did. And that's the kind of Jesus that we should really be talking about out here. Not this passive man, this passive thing. Because like you said before, this is how they're controlling us. Like that, the whole thing about religion, for me personally, and I know it's gonna sound crazy, but that's man-made. I'm not even going under the titles no more of it because that's what's man-made. That's nothing that God created divided us, y'all. Politics divide us, man-made. Religions divide us, man-made. Nothing that God created on earth divided us. This is all what man did. So I'm not into taking these titles. Oh, I'm a Christian. Listen, I got a personal relationship with the man that created me. Period. But D, yo, you got me lit on that one with Jesus. My bad, yo. I had to be lit for a second.
Let me chime in on Jesus real quick. Well, my brother, the perfect gentleman, is like absolutely right. From what the teaching that I received is, you gotta understand that Jesus was a radical, but he was an enemy of the state. You know what I mean? Like, he was executed for the things that he was trying to do. He was trying to free his people. You know what I'm saying? He was trying to free them because, you know what I mean, they were pretty much like they were taken over. You know what I mean? You had outside source came and had their people, and the churches was, you know what I mean? All of them was, you know what I mean? Like how they do us now, you know what I mean? Just taking from the people, man, beating the people down. And he was here to free his people. But they give us this docile Jesus because they don't want us to have that same mentality, that we should be out here really fighting for our people too. You know what I'm saying? We kind of let things slide, and you know that things are happening and we're not doing it. You know what I'm saying? Because like we feel like, oh, if we make waves or we do something, we commit sins. But that dude was like, you know what I'm saying? He was flipping over tables. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't having it. He was down. He was anything about the people. He was a man of the people, man. And I think if we thought more like that, we'd be different on how we look at us and each other.
I'm surprised, Mo. You ain't clapping back right now.
Look, listen, no, man. Like I said, man. This in some ways, man, this is an uncomfortable conversation for me. But man, the fact that I respect the brothers that's on the panel, man, I can take it in. So not pushback or whatever, but like for example, man, some of the stuff kind of is hitting home, right? So that's why there's not much pushback. So for example, Default was talking about some of the stuff that he was talking about. It kind of hit home for me. Kind of the tribalism of Africa. Like, so for example, man, the first time I ever went to Africa, I went to Johannesburg, South Africa. And the duality of it was this story that I'm about to give y'all is the first one happened when I first got there. I get off the plane, I always take an Uber so I can actually meet a real person, not this black car driver or whatever. I want to meet a real person that can kind of give me the real feel of what's going on. So he's like, oh, my brother, welcome to the motherland. Oh, where you from? I'm like, I'm here from Georgia, etc. Blah, blah, blah. And he says, hey, I know you're here for answers. We have none for you.
Mm.
I was like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Look, so you know what I mean? I was like, oh, okay. So
Wow.
you know what I mean, man? My eyes were look, he took the blinders off, like, you know what I mean? I hadn't even been on the continent 15 minutes.
Yo, what did you
So
say to
that was
that
real,
though?
right? Yo, that was real. So obviously there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in between. But on my way back to the airport to leave, I'm in the Uber, me and my man's talking, and I was like, man, I really love the culture here, man. Everything was dope. And he says, somebody showed you a culture? And I'm in our language, culture is kind of your food, your dance, etc., etc. When he heard culture, he thought I saw a sacrifice. So that's why you have to understand what you're talking about in whatever language that you're using. And lastly, with that, something else that I learned, like something that I learned all through growing up, there's a history with my family with people from the Caribbean or whatever. They're like very standoffish. What do they call it? Black magic, voodoo, whatever, right? When I was over there, like I told you about, there was a lot that went on within that dash. And it was like, no, this was our religion. And it opened my eyes to, I was like, this isn't all bad. It's just that it's something that the people, the colonizers didn't understand and they couldn't control. So they want to shun it and keep you away from it. So that's why, man, I'm a whole lot more open-minded. Vic, no, man, because I was like, y'all tripping. But no, from kind of my trips to the motherland, man, it opened me up to a lot of stuff, man. And I'm a whole lot more willing to accept other perspectives. So no, man, it's a great conversation, man. And like I said, it's a little uncomfortable for me, but at the same time, that's where you grow. So, man, I thank y'all for the dialogue.
What now? I'm curious. I gotta know. So what's making you uncomfortable? Because I'm new to the space, but I want to know what about this is making you uncomfortable in the perspective of conversation.
So for one, man, like, I generally I've had these conversations. I remember I used to have parties at my crib, and I would have people watch like Zeitgeist, and we would do this type of thing. But I don't speak, like, I'm in HR, so I don't speak politics or religion out in public.
Right.
So, but like, this is dope. But there's something inside of me that's like, whoa, what you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the guy with a whole bunch of knowledge that generally don't speak it out in front of the masses. So, but no, that's dope. Like, so so that's what it is. It's just kind of unsettling within me, but definitely, by all means, man, keep doing what y'all doing, man. It's growth for me.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Mr. Doug.
Mo Better touched on a lot of very good points. And like I said earlier in the beginning, I respect everyone's beliefs and everyone's opinions. I just think that a lot of, like, my dad, when he spoke on culture, when I came home from the Air Force, and after my readings and my travels around the world, I told my dad that I was an African. My dad looked at me, he says, "You ain't no African." He says, "You're an American." I said, "Dad, kittens born in an oven aren't called muffins." I said, "My DNA tells me that I'm an African. My origins come from the continent." And, I had to think about, why my dad was so disturbed about my identifying with the continent, was because they gave my dad Tarzan, and they degraded the image of Africa. They made my father feel bad. They made that whole generation feel bad about identifying with Africa. And it's been a constant onslaught of demonizing our culture and making us feel bad about that. I mean, when I grew up, I looked at cartoons that I watched as a child, and they would, when the cartoon character would blow up, he'd have locks, hair standing up and his lips big and he's black, and you know, and on and on and on. And as I grew and I started watching and I looked at how continuously, you know, clowns in a circus are black men. You know, they wear big baggy clothes with different colors, and they got big white lips, and you know, and nappy bushy hair. Those are images to make us feel bad. You know, they never missed an opportunity to make us feel bad about culture and identifying with culture. And like the brother Mo said, that word isn't even a word for other people in other countries. When I got to Bahrain, the brothers over there was like, "What's going on with the black man in America?" And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, "What's going on with Michael Jackson? Why is he turning himself white? Why is he doing that?" And I'm like, and then the movie that they were showing over there was Undercover, Deep Cover with LL Cool J, when he took that pool stick and stuck it up that brother's butt. You know what I mean? They were showing the worst of us. They were parading that around to other countries. And this is who they look at us as being. And it's a constant, continuous you know, tear down or breakdown of who we are. And I just think that a lot of times we don't actually get to experience that from different perspectives. We don't get the opportunity to talk. I mean, when we get people to come over here and talk to us, they're not the true representation of the people in that area, because they're not getting, I mean, they're not bringing those ones over here that are not cooperative. They're bringing the ones that are cooperative with the government, and they're not coming over here to make any waves. They're coming over here to get their education or work and, you know, make as much money as they can and get back or give back to where they come from. So we're not getting a true representation. When my unit was going to Africa for some humanitarian, when I was working in the hospital, we're going over there for a humanitarian mission. They didn't want me going over there because I started locking my hair. And they was like, "Oh no, you can't, you don't represent the military like we want you to represent. You can't go." And I finally got out because of that, because they don't want, they want us to be separated. They want us to believe what we're told and what images they give them and give us about who we are and who they are. So we always have to be cautious of that, man, because it's and then I was talking to some young brothers on online, and they started attacking me for identifying with my culture. And I said, "Young man, they gave you Rocky and you cheered for Rocky against Apollo. And they continuously trick us into fighting against our own self, our own image." And you know, the young man, he had to take a pause for the cause and think about that. I told him, I said, they did that to my dad. They gave me Rocky and Apollo. They gave my dad Tarzan and the Africans, and they continuously do it. And he kind of acknowledged that, you know. So
My short chime in, right, is God can't be about color. God can't be about race. Like,
why
and
not?
I think this is making it too racial. Like, you know,
Why not? They didn't make. I didn't make it racial. They made it racial. They're attacking me. I never attacked white people.
that
I've
don't mean they're
never
right or
attacked them.
wrong. I mean, that don't mean we do that in return. Like, oh, y'all are pushing white God on us, so it's our job to push black God on them, or you know what I mean?
No, no,
Like, it's not a
no,
racial thing that God is.
no. Don't get me wrong. We didn't create pictures and give it to them. They created pictures and gave it to us. So it's not
but
that I'm pushing race. They
but
push race. Race
I
is a construct from the government. That ain't us. We're not the government.
but I think that's with any dominant construct. Whoever's in power, whoever their God is, that's who they're going to push on you. It's a Roman society. They're still in power. Here's the unique thing about us that differs even from Africa, because there's a lot of people from, I have a lot of African friends, especially from Nigerian. I did the whole ancestral thing, and 27% of my DNA is from Nigeria. But a lot of those Africans don't funk with us, y'all. We're African Americans. Here's the other thing. Remember what Hoover said. Hoover said, I think it was Hoover. Hoover said, they asked him, what's your greatest fear? That the Negro would unite. So anything they can do to keep us where what you were talking
Black
about,
Messiah. Yeah.
that's what they know if we unite, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. So they're gonna do. And here's the other thing, as Jesus talks about, I got a tribe that or a people that you know nothing of. I really think the African Americans, because everybody in the freaking world, literally, not metaphorically, wants to be like us. They try to rap like us. They try to dress like us. Our swag, everything, even Africa, they try to rep us. And until we understand the power that we have as Black African Americans, man, that's the major puzzle right there, yo. I believe that because everybody wants Chinese. I don't care what nationality. Everybody wants to be like us.
True. That's true.
That's real. I've been on every continent but Antarctica at this point, and when they see me, look, they giving me their phone, and I'm like, "Oh, you want me to take a picture?" No, they're like, "No, I want to take a picture with you."
Yeah.
Everywhere I've been, they want to be us.
Yeah.
So that's why, kind of, yeah. I think that's a different show, but yeah, man, I'll let y'all go ahead. I'll land my plane because there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack in that.
Truth.
Chime in, Hit. What you got?
All right. So I guess we kind of, we went around the world, but I guess to tell me, is it important to believe in God? Right. That's still the question.
Go whatever you're thinking is.
I'm gonna go with the question. Because I think my man Smooth said it, and he said that we all are gods, right? But they actually speak about it in Psalms. I can't remember which one, but it says, what I'm saying, you are, well, what I'm saying, because we're children of the Most High, we're gods, right? So, but I think the problem with us is the human side is that we're limited, like in our God, right? So like we can plant food all day, but we still rely on external sources. You know what I mean? We still gotta have the rain. We still need the sun. You know what I mean? We're limited in our capabilities. So if you ask, like, is it important to believe in God? I believe that the internal God in us needs to connect with the external God. You know what I'm saying? And that's when you clicking on all cylinders. You know what I mean? That's when things are moving and you're hearing the right things and you're doing the right things because you got that connection, that force. That's what's gonna pull you and push you when you don't have nothing else to believe in. Like when you down and out, you know what I'm saying, or you're looking for the strength, or you know what I'm saying, you're trying to get that extra. You need that external God to help, like, kind of like charge your batteries. You know what I mean? Like even like situations where you look at like the Haitians and in different countries, a lot of the liberation and the things that they did was based off of their belief in God. You know what I'm saying? That they believed that they was going to be free because, you know what I'm saying, this is what God wanted for them. You know what I mean? So they use that as a form of strength, you know what I mean, to fight for their freedom. And I think also, having that external, that connection and that belief also shows us how to love. You know what I mean? I think, you know what I mean, if the definition of love that we have, you know what I'm saying, comes from, you know what I mean, I think from something like, you know what I'm saying, outside of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like how you talk, like how God loves you and how we're supposed to, you know what I mean, love the earth, you know what I mean, love the people, you know what I mean, have that forgiveness, like look like at the bigger picture. I think all that comes from that belief in God and understanding who God is and what God does for us. You know what I mean? That helps us you know what I mean, become just better people in general. So like, do I think it's belief? That's why I feel like that's it's so important to believe. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that can pull us away. You know what I'm saying? But like, I think that's a source of strength, man. Like that's the water. You know what I mean? So like that's what I would say on that question, man, that topic.
Smooth, chime in.
Hey, my response is simple and it's short. Believe in something bigger than yourself. That's all I'm saying. If you want to call it God, Jehovah, the universe, just believe in something bigger than yourself. Because you can't believe that your every existence because your dad knocked your mom out some panties and you here. You here for a reason. Figure that part out, man. I think all of us got to figure that out. It's a different journey for all of us. But just believe in something bigger than yourself.
So for me, here's the line for me, and it goes into the next question. I know we're getting over the hour slot, but here's the line in the sand for me, right? Is and what I want to get some feedback from you guys. What are y'all thoughts about life after death? Right? Because I mean, initially, all these different belief systems and God or whatever we believe, if we're God, Christianity's God, however you want to place God in your life, right? And we can all agree that these things make us better men. But one thing for certain for me is the life after death part, right? So I'm a believer. I'm a Christian, and y'all know where that is. And I'll go into detail, but I want everybody to kind of chime in. Is what's your thoughts on life after death? You know, if it's not Christ for you, or if even if it is, just what's your thoughts on it?
I'm gonna be quick and simple about this one. There is no one that has left Earth and was able to come back and tell us about it. I think that we worry too much about the afterlife, and everything in the Bible speaks about bringing heaven to earth. So really, my thought isn't about the afterlife. It's about what I'm doing right now. My job is to make sure that what happens here is a resemblance of what happened in heaven. Like my job is to make heaven on earth. I don't want to leave it up to chance. Because like I said, there is nobody that has left this earth and came back and like, yo, you know what heaven was like, or do you know hell was like this? I ain't got no proof of that. So until
I will argue, isn't that leaving that up to chance?
What do you mean?
So are you? Can you not worrying about it, right?
Mhm.
And saying, I'm gonna wait till my turn. But go ahead, anybody else?
He got something he gonna drop down, y'all. He got something, but he gonna drop on it.
So, man, a couple things, man, and like I say, man, this is a real powerful conversation, man, because it's actually bringing up different things in my life. It's kind of bringing it full circle. And for me, man, when I got married the first time, changed the names to protect the innocent, but literally the reason I got married was because the grandmother said, "Y'all here doing XYZ, living. I feel bad that I'm not going to be able to see you in heaven." That's why I got married. So with that being said, someone else told me I was doing something I had no business doing. They saw me doing it and they said, "Hey, you out here living like there ain't no God. You better be right." So back to the point that I always say, God, whatever, the higher being, it is my GPS, is my navigational system. It is how I always know how to get back home. So whether there is or there isn't, I'm gonna act like right now, like there really is a God, there is a heaven. If nothing else, it's an insurance policy for me, and that's how I live my life.
Okay, I want to chime in because something that Perfect Gentleman said. Uh, to me, matter cannot be destroyed; it just changes shape and form. Okay, so life after death isn't what we consider life or death, whereas there's like a beginning or an end. It's a continuous circle because we are energy, and um, we will change shape and we will change form into a different type of energy or existence. And it won't be with eyes, teeth, stomach, heart. It will just be energy that returns back into nature. Um, so, as far as a reincarnation or anything like that, I think that our ancestors understood that when you return to the earth, your essence may feed the grass, or it may feed the trees, or it may feed uh, other animals. It may feed, and that energy will transform into other forms of energy. So when I think of life after death, I don't think of as a living, breathing, seeing up in the sky heaven or down in the earth, uh, burning in some sort of fire. I don't believe those types of things. I just believe that when that circle, it doesn't complete, it just goes in a circle. Um, a picture speaks 1,000 words, um, and I think that when we try to put words upon the understanding of our ancestors in this form, we do ourselves a disservice. So I just think that when we transition, that's this form of energy that we are occupying right now. We'll just transform into another form of energy. That's just how I see it.
And yo, that right there, that goes back to that what you were taught, like the thought process of heaven and hell. Like you just now saying that gives me a new perspective on it because I was like, I think of afterlife. I'm thinking that heaven and hell. I'm thinking like I'm either going to be in the clouds of glory or I'm going to be in a furnace of fire burning for eternity. That's what we was taught. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I'm like, I'm slowly pulling away from because I'm like, yo, how do I like how who says this? Like, how do I know it's even true? So I'm glad you said that, brother Connor, for real.
Peace,
So
bro.
they said so. I think early on, I'm trying to think of it as a Hebrew. I think it was a Hebrew, the Jews. I forgot, but they believe that once you die, that was it. Then you cease to exist. I know that the whole concept of heaven was created way after there was a whole lot of life going on. And then you got like the Africans, Lord believed in, like, they got the ancestral plane and just where you go. Like, I think it's a lot of different, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different things that people say that happens afterwards. Ain't nobody never been there, came back and said anything. I think, you know what I'm saying? But you can go and find a lot of different sources. I think the biggest thing is like to create the afterlife here, like by being such a good person that people keep like talking about you. You know what I'm saying? I think that's how you live on. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? They're still talking about you. They're still talking about what you did, and they can still see the effects in you and your kids. Because if you look at the Bible, they were huge. Like, it was like this son begat this person, this begat this person, who begat this person. Like, your lineage and who you are, and through your people is everything. That's how you live on. You know what I mean? If you're looking at creating a heaven like here, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're gonna look at your people and see what you did and see who you was, and you continue to live. Like, you continue to live on here, man. So that's my take on it.
Another form of energy. Absolutely, bro. That's just another form, whether it's a mental energy or a physical energy, whether it's ashes or whether it's, you know, dust. I mean, it's another form of energy, and it lives on. It can live on mentally, it can live on spiritually, just like the spirit of Malcolm X. If we all concentrate on how that fiery brother addressed and approached death and life, I mean, he's still alive, really. I mean, that energy is still alive, but it's not Malcolm. It's the energy that Malcolm, of his essence, that Malcolm left. I just wanted to chime in on that, bro. But I think you're right on that. Definitely.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Here's the for me the oxymoron is faith. Being a person of faith, it's what they call the mysterium tremendum. Um, Faith is the substance of things hoped for. The, Here's the oxymoron: the evidence of things not seen. I choose to believe that. And that's where my hope lies. Whether that occurs, whether as the Bible says, new bodies, what that looks like, if it is in the form of what bro was talking about in energy, so be it. Another thing I think about that I'm learning is that the universe, we're so arrogant in the earth that we think that this is the only existence. They're discovering not our solar system, they're discovering multiple solar systems. And our finite mind think that this is just it, you know? And last, so that's where lay my head at is faith, is the evidence of things. I mean, the things that we hope for, the evidence of things not seen. How that will manifest, I don't know. That's where I lay my. And it's interesting. Even the Bible talks about in the end times, there will be a great a falling away from the faith. And it's interesting to me. I just saw this stat. Even for the non-believer, over 90% of deaths, funerals are still being held where? Across the world, not the United States. Funerals are still being held where? In the church. That's interesting to me. It kind of coincides, but there's very few people, if they don't believe in God or whatever they believe in, that they're having their celebration of death or whatever they call it outside of some spiritual or no, it's called what it is, outside of the church. Over 90% of people who die, their ceremonies are being held in the church, not just United States, around the world.
That don't make it right, but it is a fact. Okay, but that don't make it right because ancient Kemet or Egypt, there weren't no such thing as churches. So truth is what was, what is, and what will be. If it don't fit all three, I can't claim it as truth. You can believe it if you want, but that's on you. That's on the individual, and I respect it.
Yeah, I respect that as well. I agree. It's just an interesting matter of fact, for me.
I would say I kind of ask Brother Folk a question. So like to say like I understand like the whole concept of heaven and hell, but I think that's something that I looked at when I said, I felt free once I realized what God was. Is that and I don't believe that God punishes us. I think we were taught like, yo, if I do this or do that, then God's gonna strike me down and be punished for it. So isn't that the whole idea of the concept of hell is that God is going to punish us for the mistakes that we made on the journey?
So I want to kind of answer that. I don't necessarily think it's a punishment. It's a um act right by the team or don't be a part of the team. You know what I mean? And it's a this or that, right? So you have free will to choose as you may, but either you're part of this team or you're not, and that team gets that, and this team gets this. So I that's how I would
But
answer
so
that
what? So
question.
like, okay, let me ask you a question, right? If somebody's gonna, and I just say this, if somebody's threatening to shoot your child, right? But you gotta lie, right? Are you gonna lie to save your child? Right? But in the Bible, that's a sin. Like you just sinned. You know what I'm saying? You just committed a sin, right?
There's
But
grace for that.
huh?
There's grace for that.
But
That's
hold up,
always the answer. That's
but
always
hold
the
up.
answer. We think it logical though.
That's not a
But
horrible. That's what the Bible said. There's
But
grace
hold
for
up,
that.
we got to take definition of sin though, because what's a sin? Anything
that's
that
what
goes against what you feel. Like a sin is basically anything that goes against what it is that's right that you feel right about. That's how I think a
I
sin is.
wouldn't say
whatever
it, I
turns you
don't think
away
it has
from God.
anything to do with feeling. It has something to do with God. Like because
Yeah,
it.
but a sin is anything that turns you away from God, right? So in that essence, right? You saying that I still use in the definition you committed a sin, right, to save your child.
And there's
But
grace for that.
right, that's what I'm saying. So isn't it grace for all the other stuff that you do? So
Yeah,
that means
but I mean,
everybody
but
will go
some
to
people
heaven.
don't accept. Some people don't accept Christ, like flat out.
You,
So
But
I mean,
but Christ isn't the only. So Christ isn't the only way to heaven. What about the Buddha that
well,
cares
Christ
for
is
everybody in
that,
this community and he died?
and that's where I
So
wanted to chime in, right? Because Christ says He is the only way, right? So in that, right? No other believing. I can believe in whatever, right? But Christ is the only insurance policy that really works. If it's going to work now, if there is no Christ and none of that whatever, then as long as I live a good life, I could fall under any other energy or whatever. But Christ says blatantly, you this team or that team, and if you're not this, you're not that, right? So that's where I gotta go with, because this is the only place where it says if you don't do this, you're going to burn. Everything else says, oh, you can just do whatever you know what I mean. It is what I'm not saying you can do whatever you want, but everything else says something different. I'm not penalized for not believing that God. I'm only penalized for not believing my God.
Well, I would say this, man. Sometimes I think it's really human of us to think that something so vast as God can only show itself in one form. You know what I'm saying? Like it got to be through Christianity or the Christ. Like this, so the world is so huge and so vast. There's people like in the bush. Like you know what I'm saying? What do they believe in something, right? Something external that's getting them through day to day. Are you telling me they're gonna go to hell too because they never found Jesus?
Right.
That's what like made me unsettled about like Christianity, because there's a lot of good people in the world. There's a lot of Buddhists that like they devote their life to doing right. You telling me they gonna go and burn with all the pedophiles and everybody else because they never said that Jesus was their savior? Like
Yes,
yes,
Jesus never said that he was somebody's savior.
I'm gonna say
That
yes.
came like with Paul, but that's a whole nother story. But you know what I'm saying? Like, are you saying that like they all gonna burn
so
because they
I
don't? You know what I'm saying? I don't get it.
can I just chime in my little 2 cents. My little 2 cents. It's a great dialogue, but my little 2 cents in that is like to your lie, to the content about lying to save your child. There's a scripture in the Bible where the spies were coming to, and God told, I think it's Ahab, one of the girls, to hide the people and to lie. So you have to add the content of. So now with the word we was talking about earlier, it could mean different things depending on the context and what you're using it for. My thing is, as a Christian, what I hate about religious and church folk is that heaven and the hell thing. I'm on the side of the Christ thing. However, my job is just to love, man. I don't know what the end's going to be. I believe, but God says, I mean, what I believe is God says, look, I separate the wheat from the tare. That ain't your job. My job is to love, scatter seeds of love. How the end's going to be, don't none of us know. We might have some ideas. We might have read some stuff. We might have some belief. I believe in what Imperfect Gentleman says, like heaven on earth, that we should be living that. Now, when we all going to die. What that's going to look like, none of us really know. None of us really know. But we hope. We have some ideas. We have some opinions. We've read some things. But like she said, no one's come back from the dead and told us this stuff.
Not a one.
And,
And I want to point to one point too. So last year this time I got an opportunity to do security for Tony Robbins, right? And it was a phenomenal experience because I got backstage and I was in an event that most people can't get into unless you pay that kind of money to get into. But in that experience of that, in that environment, I was so convicted when they turned the lights off and had this spiritual experience. I felt like I was doing something wrong because I didn't hear nobody speaking in tongues. I didn't hear nobody praying and worshiping the way I knew, right? What I was accustomed to. But let me tell y'all something. When I got out of what I thought I knew about life and what that I felt, and I just said to myself, let me experience this. I think I had a more powerful experience, a spiritual experience in that event than I've had at any other church that I've ever been a part of. So it's like that whole thing about one way to come is like, I don't know, man. Like that's scary because like you said, there's people on other parts of the earth. How do we know that they have the same literature that we
Hey, you must be spitting. Hey, you must, because you just went out. Yeah, you must have said something that they ain't want you to know, bro.
Yeah, boy, that's that foul 13. He was getting into that, huh?
Go ahead, Mr. Doug. You got something to say?
I just, you know, I just the way my mind works, bro. I just don't understand how you can burn something that is just pure energy. I mean, you're not going to have teeth, eyes, hair, or clothes. So you say if you're not on that team, you're going to burn. What is going to burn is what can burn, or you know what I'm saying? If you look at Metu Neter, or the writings on the wall at the judgment day, which is not the way the Bible puts it, but it's when your heart is weighed on the scales of Ma'at and it's weighed against the feather. And if the heart is heavier than the feather, you descend, not going into the ground or going into some fiery furnace, but you descend. That means that you die with a heavy heart. Or if your heart is lighter than a feather, it ascends, doesn't go into the clouds and to some heaven. But this was written thousands of years before the Bible. So, I mean, Dr. Ben Yakinen, there's a lot of scholars that break down, Metu Neter and the writings on the wall and the things that Constantine and the Council of Nicene took bits and pieces and constructed the Bible. And I don't want to be too long-winded, but there's a lot of folklore, hocus pocus, and things that are, and I'm not dogging anybody. I'm not trying to talk down on anybody. There's a lot of things that are in there that makes people believe in fear because they needed to have some sort of moral compass because in Rome they were sleeping with animals, women, I mean, boys. I mean, it was so, it was so immoral a place. So when they put that Bible together, they needed to have something to help the people have a moral compass. And it became so big that that Bible traveled all over Europe. And the only way it got into Africa was through the missionaries. But that was the place where Jesus or Yeshua walked. So that's just, something to think about.
So, man, I think this was a great dialogue, man. I want to give you guys, if y'all have any final bits to say, I know you can find Imperfect. I'll let everybody say where where you can be found at. But yeah, I don't want to. I only like to keep y'all for an hour. I don't want to go over too too much.
Yo, I seen that clip. I seen that clip. I was like, yo, you gonna miss it today,
Hey.
I seen that clip on Instagram and TikTok. You guys can follow out there, and then go ahead and follow, man.
Hey.
What's up, Imperfect? Where can they find you at?
Man, if you guys want to follow me, catch me on Instagram at rjd.imperfectgentleman. Also, I got a podcast on YouTube called the Imperfect Fathers Podcast. I also would like to have you guys on that, man. So I'm gonna reach out to all you guys and have you guys come on my podcast as well, man. And thank you so much, my brother, for inviting me on this phenomenal platform, bro.
No, that's real love. What's up, Smooth? What you got?
I want to know what Smooth drinking on though. That's what I want to know.
It ain't that communion wine, that's for sure.
Hey man, I'm on Tito's, man. No carbs, no sugar, man. I got the Johnson Family Life Center opening up soon, man. It's gonna be an online church, 501(c). You know what I'm saying? We take Cash App and Venmo. Bible study on Thursdays, morning service on Sundays from 11:30, 11:45. Get y'all for kickoff and tip off. You know what I'm saying? So Be on the lookout for that.
You're an absolute fool, bro. Hey, I don't know, Mr. Connor. You know, I had to dig him up, man. Like, you know, he might be hitting off somewhere. If you want the people to find you, or you want to, you know, shout out something, what you got?
Hey, you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not into the social media thing like that. I just want to say I appreciate you young brothers for sharing with me and taking the time out to hear what I have to say. We don't have many platforms like this except the barbershop. And that only goes but so far there. But I think that this is a really, really great platform and an opportunity for us to dialogue. And it's very important for us to continue to do this. Anytime, anywhere, anybody wants to dialogue, I'm ready. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to learn because I've learned a lot from you brothers, and I appreciate the time.
We thank you, big bro. What you got, bro?
Hey man, again, I second, third, fourth, that is great dialogue. I respect everybody's opinion. We need more of this kind of stuff. I'm not a big social media. I'm a musician, man. I do a lot of music that matters. I'm doing this big opera in New York called Bumpy Johnson. So I'm excited about that. So I'm doing a lot of composing. I got my first film soundtrack that I'm doing for a Netflix gig, so I'm excited about that. Just look up D Folk. And then I just lastly want to say that how proud I am of my bro, little bro, Cat Fantry. I won't go into his history, but I'll tell you this much. Program that I was in, that I was his mentor, Powers to Be was telling me he was not going to amount to anything. And I took him out of the program. I went above and beyond what took him to my house. Am I right, Cav? He became a part of my family.
Facts.
And to see this brother doing what he's doing now, I mean, if I wasn't trying to man up, I get choked up, man. And I'm proud of you, brother. Keep on doing what you're doing, bro.
I thank you. That means a lot from you, bro. So I got another soundbite clip that I wanted to add for myself. So, man, I appreciate all you guys, and that's another prototype dead. We out.
Much love, brothers. Yes, sir.